let's be real here. There's nothing that I can add to really explain more how good this anime is, but I'll certainly try. Hello everyone, welcome to the Weeb initiative. I'm your host, the Weeb. This is a show where every other week I'll be talking about anime, manga, and everything in between. This week I'll be talking about the second part or second season of Umamusume Cinderella Gray, and as such I need to first start with disclaimers. So as spoiler alert, I'll be talking about everything that happens in this season, and for the most part that's about the whole disclaimer. The one thing that I need to actually add to this part is that the first one that I think that may be important to maybe a later discussion is that at the time of recording I have not seen any announcement or confirmation that there will be a new season of this. So for all intents and purposes, on my view, Cinderella Gray is finished, and so the 23 episodes that we have in total, accounting for the first season or part 1 and the 10 episodes that we have for the second season or part 2 are the total of the anime of Cinderella Gray. That being said, I know that the manga does enter into a later arc than the anime, so there's that. And even then, I don't think that the later arc will be covered in anime form either way. I have not read the manga for this part, but and this is a tangent already on the disclaimers part, but from people that have read the manga and talked to me, I know for a fact that there is a cameo. I don't know whose, because nobody actually told me which horse it is, but anyways, there's a cameo that would indicate that the next spin-off manga for Umamusume will be about the 2010/2011 generation of horses, so Orfevre, Gentildona, Gold Ship, and finally actually get the fans a bit of closure for what was a pretty weird line in the third season of Pretty Derby. That's besides the point of what I'm talking about, but is to say that from what I could understand from people that read the manga does go over some other things that the anime does not, and even then the anime this time is shorter than the first season. That being said, let's get to the stats. So as I already said, Cinderella Gray season 2 or part 2 is the second half of Umamusume Cinderella Gray. They did the thing that I just brush past this, but I just want to reiterate that I really do hate this thing that they do nowadays with the 2 cores kind of thing. I don't understand why they can't just release the whole anime in a single go. Even more the fact that this is going on at the release in my country on Amazon Prime, so I don't understand the necessity of actually having 2 cores. I really don't understand, especially because we are talking about Umamusume. Umamusume is for all intents and purposes in the year of our Lord 2026 at the highest of its relevance, so I don't think that they would need an extra marketing cap to boost the notoriety of the series, because right now everybody's talking about it, everybody plays it. Me personally, I don't play the gacha game, but I do love the anime and I buy the figure, so one way or another I'm already inside of the fandom either way. But then again, I don't understand why they did this, and so on and so forth. The whole thing is this is the second part with only 10 episodes, whereas the first part was 13. This is still done by Cygames Pictures, the same writing team, same all the staff, and as such, this was released. Also, the original run was from October 2025 to December 2025, I'm pretty sure. And so, with that being said, let's get to the story. So, and here is the part that I kind of betray what I talked in the intro. It may sound, like I don't like this anime, but I want to make sure from the get-go and talking, I want to be pretty clear when talking about this. I do love this anime, I really do. I think that they did a really amazing job with everything this the whole thing about Umamusume being cute and at the same time emotional and having high stakes when it matters. I think that they did pretty well. The animation, I think that it kept up with the quality, even I would say some parts went a bit over the first season. And also I really want to commend them on the way this is my opinion, but I think that they leaned a bit more on Umamusume being a sports anime more than I would say more than your normal somewhat idolish anime. So it kind of, let's say, separates itself a bit more from Pretty Derby and actually leans on some tropes and some routines from sports anime. So I would say that it is a beneficial thing more than anything else. I think that they did really do well with the side gags, side stories, the whole thing about the building up of the stakes for the final race. I think it went pretty well, even though some parts may present some improvement points, I would say. But that being said, right, so they really did well with everything in general. I think that and this is, I think, especially demonstrated in the thumbnail of this episode, but I thought it was really funny. Oguri is such a perfect character to just mess around with in terms of caricatures and stuff, and the funny moments that they actually put into the anime. I think it was really nice, and for that reason I want to make pretty clear right from the beginning, I really do like this anime. But now we need to talk about the story. So basically, and this is right from the get-go, the whole anime is aimed at building the stakes for the ending. I know that saying this may be, let's say, maybe redundant for some stuff, because all of the stories always build up to the ending, but specifically this one, I will say that it especially does become really apparent that they are doing it, because everything that happens is basically a side story just to put in context whatever happens at the end. Basically, at the first episode we have just basically a reminder of whatever happened in the first season, and then the presentation more or less of the Striker as a possible new antagonist rival for Oguri. Then the second episode we already start with the presentation of Super Creek, so the famous Super Creek blob or being, whatever you want to call it, happens in the second episode, where she goes through a bit of training, a bit of her backstory more or less. I think that her characterization in the anime is a little more tame than the game, though it may just be the prominence of the community memes around her, though again, I think she's very cute in the way that she acts in the anime at the release. And in the second episode we already get a few more, let's say, input of not only her but Muteki also from the first season, although Muteki will not have that much of an impact overall in the season, though she's already in, so they use her also for Sakura Chiyono and Meijiro Arden. Those three don't have that much impact overall, especially Arden and Chiyono. If you go through their records, Chono especially, I think, didn't have that great of a career after her first crown, though that actually happened in the first season. So for the instance of this season, three of them will not have that much impact. Arden and Chono will not run, I think, in the whole of the anime, and basically just we will only see Muteki losing all the race that she gets on. Not that she gets like absolutely destroyed, but she never actually gets gold, I think. So coming back, the second episode is basically just to build up a bit of the stakes specifically for Super Creek, because then she wins the Kikasho. Then for the third episode we have the build up for the Japan Cup, which is basically the second main thing that happens in this anime, and what will take up, I think, if I'm not mistaken, around 4 episodes of the whole 10. So basically, again, second episode we had the build up for Super Creek, then from the third episode to I think the 6th episode more or less, we have the whole arc of the Japan Cup. So on this episode we have the introduction of all the international competitors. So for New Zealand, Leslie Pride; for the US, Michelle My Baby; for England, Moon Lunacy. Also from the US, now that I think about it, is Obey Your Master. And for Italy, the one that comes hotter than the rest, more pronounced, let's say, is Tony Bianca. Easy to say, and this is already explaining the whole of the arc. First off, right? So first everything. Just to explain all of the horses. So Tony Bianca comes in hot as the champion of the arc, I think. She basically is the main favorite, let's say, for this race. Then we have Leslie Pride. I don't actually know how to pronounce this. I had to look up her name again because I didn't actually remember her name, because she does jack shit. Moon Lunacy, same boat, but she's from England, but she also does jack shit. Maybe at some point she blocks Tammo Cross in the middle of the race, but that's mostly everything that she does. I think that they may have, and this is my opinion again, they may build up the internationals a bit too much, because by the end of the day they don't do really that much. So Moon Lunacy from Britain, United Kingdom, whatever. Then there's Leslie Pride from New Zealand, Michelle My Baby from the US, the first let's say US competitor. Her whole role in the whole of the Japan Cup, the whole thing that she does is body check or goody cap for a part of the race. That's basically everything she does. Outside of that, nothing ever happens. Then we have Tony Bianca, who actually ults and kind of gives a show by the end, and the animation of her ult is actually pretty... it is simpler than the rest. You can actually see that because she only goes like into the kind of the same, how can I say this, same particles that come out of everyone's eyes when they ult and stuff, but hers is a simpler design and only like generic, I'll say generic on air quotes here, rainbow colors and stuff. Not something that actually has, I would say, personality, not something that does go well with her design, if you can understand what I'm saying, because when we look, for example, at Tamomo's ult, she's White Lightning, Shiro Inazuma, I think. She has the whole electric theming around her, and later on when we see Dick the Striker, her call out being the shooting bullet, it does kind of go well with. Tony Bianca does ult, but she does not have personalized kind of design, which then comes to me as something that they just thought about it as a fleeting moment, like they didn't actually need to put in effort with the Zumas, specifically because also I think that they will, and this is me just saying, I don't know this for certain, but it is something that I think the whole community can agree on, that most likely none of these Zumas will ever be released in the game. So that's why even though they have the designs, they don't actually have anything else, let's say, done to them outside of the design, and that's basically it. So again, Michelle, my baby, her whole thing is body checking Oguri. Then after Tony Bianca does ult, and then we have a whole side story in the middle of the 4 episodes that it takes to go through the whole of the Japan Cup arc. We do have the backstory of Obey Your Master, who at first appears like a cool Gyaro and stuff, and ended up with her having a really nice figure. I think it's the only Uma outside of the main game that has a figure, if I'm not mistaken. I really wanted to have money for that, but right now I'm broke. She does have a really... And they do this really quickly. They do run through a bit of her backstory and then how she didn't actually get much success on US soil, and so she chose to go international to actually try to get a G1 win, and it ends up being that she does come out on top after going head to head with Tamamo, and Oguri unfortunately failing to actually catch up. At this point she does win, so the Japan Cup goes to Obey Your Master, and after that we have basically part where Tamamo Cross has some inner reflection stuff, and this goes to build up the rest of the stakes for the final arc of the anime, because at this point we are already on episode 7, so there are only a few episodes left to the end of the season. From then on we have then Tamamo deciding to retire after she completes, and at that point she plans to win the Arimakinen for that year. This added to the fact that every one of the international competitors that came into Japan say that the one thing that they are glad for was that Oguri was not on top of her game yet, so basically they had a easier time due to that fact, because otherwise they would have lost, and that is to basically hype up the fact that Oguri at this point in the anime she's nearly at the top of her performance, even though at this point she goes down to the dumps because she's frustrated and stuff. And even more than that, after a discussion with Tama actually says to her that she's going to retire after the Arimakinen, and then we have, and this is the thing, we do have I will not say a rehash, it's not completely a rehash, but it is basically the same thing that they did in Beginning of a New Era with Poke and Tachyon, because basically it's the same thing about the rival trying to get out before you can actually truly compete with them and win, and they more or less did the same thing here. And we have the fastest second arc low point of history, so basically it's half an episode of Oguri actually being down in the dumps and being frustrated, but then we have let's say a nostalgia, more easygoing episode with her meeting with everyone from Kasamatsu, even Joe, after he fails his first try at national trainer license. We have that, let's say, blast from the past at this point, to see everyone from Nornace to Fujisaka Marsh and so on and so forth. And basically we have this kind of refresher. Then from that point on we do have a side story for the introduction and more or less a little development of Dicta Striker, who's the, let's say, last competitor or relevant competitor at the Arimakinen, which is the last event of the whole anime. So basically the Arimakinen will be duo of titans, as they say. The 3 titans are then Tamamo Cross, who is at the peak of horse racing. Then we have Oguri Cap, who's the Ashen Beast, I think that this is how they call her at this point, who's the biggest prospect, even though she does have a few wins under her belt. She's the biggest what if, because if she had run the classics, and then we go back to the whole thing about the first season where she couldn't run the classics because she had not registered, and URA, I would say URA because this is not IRL, JRA. Anyways, basically the whole thing is to build up for this. Then, and this is also a point of improvement, they do And this I will call a rehash, because at some point this is a bit way too close for comfort for me. But Dicta, the introduction and the little, let's say, development of Dicta Striker that we have is basically the same thing that they did with Cheval Gran in the third season of Pretty Derby, which is not like wrong that they do it, but because the way that it does play out is different, because Dicta and Cheval have different personalities and stuff, so it kind of does feel different, though matter of fact it is the same kind of motions and stuff, which then tells me that they are running out of ideas, I think. I mean, it is kind of way on the nose for me at the very least, because I do remember the bigger parts of Free Derby overall, and so this kind of jumped out on me a bit too much. That being said, however, everything goes well. Then we have the Eri McKinnon. It is a really interesting thing to watch, and at some point I think they took a bit of inspiration from the last fight between Naruto and Sasuke from Naruto, where they go through their phases more or less. In this case, they go through their infancy, with Tamamo and Oguri having a good time actually finishing the Eri McKinnon head-to-head, to the point that by then Oguri wins, and basically that's the end of the main story of the anime. But we do this is only episode 9, and we do still have one more episode. This single extra episode, and this is why I talked about at the beginning that I don't think that there will be a third season, but this single episode is just to introduce the fact that there are more competitors to come for Oguri at that point in time, because and this is from what I understand from horse racing history, the point that Oguri Cap actually won the Eri McKinnon was the point that his career actually began for real, and from that point on a whole lot of other horses came along, other competitors came along. So the last episode of Cinderella Gray actually is about Inari-1, who would become one of his biggest rivals in the coming years after Tamamo Cross had retired. And basically the anime ends on there. So overall, this is a story, right? So what can I say about this? What is my opinion? I already gave my opinion on some things, but I will talk more about, I think structure is one thing that I would really want to touch on. It's really weird to actually talk about this, because I took my time on actually recording this review, because I had to think some things and actually discuss with other people that really like this anime specifically. Though one thing that I can actually say is that I don't know, man, it feels kind of weird, because first off, right, so this has only 10 episodes, whereas the first season had 13. And while this anime does not feel kind of rushed, it does actually feel the opposite sometimes. It feels a bit padded at some junctions. The one thing that really wrecked me a bit is that for both, I think, the Japan Cup and the Eri McKinnon, the races are separated between 2 episodes, and that really does kind of mess with me in some instances, because I don't know, man. It just feels like they should finish the race within the episode. I know that you want to convey more things inside of the race, but then I would say that you need to reorganize how you're presenting the rest of the episode, rather than trying to get this everything on 2 episodes separated. What I'm trying to say is that it felt kind of weird to have the race separated by 2 episodes, between 2 episodes, and at the same time, it did feel a bit like they didn't have that much to actually talk about in general. I think that the build-up for the internationals, and this is the main thing, right? So we had the first episode, which was a reminder, basically. Then the second episode is just to present Creek. From that point on, I think that the introduction of the internationals were a bit overhyped in some sense. They really did feel like they would do more things or develop the character a bit more, though it feels a bit way too fast the way that they come and go, because they appear one episode, then we have the side story of Obey Your Master, and then Japan Camp happens, split between 2 episodes, and then they're finished, bye-bye to whatever year and whatever. Like, it kind of feels weird that way, because at the same time that you would think that, you would think that it would have a better, more pronounced effect in the characters and story. It does fail to actually convey anything, or it does feel kind of anticlimactic, is what I'm trying to say. And even more than that, for the whole thing about Dicta and the Aremakinan, Dicta has her whole arc just introduced just to say that she ults at the Aremakinan, and that's basically it. Because even when she ults at the Aremakinan, she does not do that much overall. And I know that this is the facts that happen. This is basically the rewriting of what happened in the 1989, I think, 89, 88, Aremakinan, and I know that they are basically tied to what happened in the story of the horse itself, but at the same time, I think that the presentation and the way that they did it was not the best, and did not, at the very least to me, feel the same quality as the first season. The first season, I felt it was more involved. I felt it was way more personal. It felt great to see the story of Oguri, and the whole thing on the second season is that it does not feel personal. It feels really shallow for most part. I really wanted to have a whole arc on the backstory of Tama. I really wanted to have a whole arc on the backstory of Greek, but then we didn't have that. And at the same time, where I feel it does feel shallow, it does feel padded in the wrong parts. The 2 things that lead me to say this is the fact that the first episode is huge reminder of everything that happened in the first one, even though the anime came out I think 3 months before this. Like, it just finished the same year, bro. It's not that much time. And even more to the fact that they would choose to end the anime in the 9th episode, and then have a whole episode just to introduce someone who would become the rival for Oguri Cap. Maybe I'm wrong, and they will come out and say that there will be a new season of Cinderella Gray. I don't know, but at the same time, it does feel at this point like they did something really amiss with, they messed up with the pacing of everything. While it does not feel rushed, it does feel padded, but everything's really shallow. So I don't know what happened, because it feels unpersonal. It does not feel like an actual, it does not feel like the same anime anymore. It does not feel like I could see one part after the other and say, yes, this is really great. It does really. And I commented with one of my friends about this, but it really did feel similar to Guilty Crown, where the first half is pretty great, and then the second half is pretty like, what the fuck's happening? It felt just like that, but still, that's besides the point. The thing with everything with this anime is that it is pretty great. The whole thing is really nice, but at the same time, I feel like the first season was better, much, like, way better, but that's maybe just me. Talking about animations, music, animation is pretty crisp, pretty nice. The one thing that I will say is that they did micro Super Crick 30, because she does not have a note for the whole of the anime. I feel like it was really like, how could you have not animated something for her? Like, come on, you animated something for Tony. I know it was really simple and stuff, but come on. And outside of that, the animation is pretty nice. I really do like the style of animation of side games. I may be biased a bit on this because of Cinderella Girls and stuff, but again, I think the light work that they do is pretty nice. The whole thing with expressions and the little gags that they put in, I think they are really well worth it. Even the use of 3D on one single scene of baking a gag on Oguri, I think was especially nice. And that's basically it for animation. Talking about now music, I have nothing really to write home about. I know that I don't know the name of this opening, neither the ending. The ending is just nice because of the visuals, so I think on my humble opinion, the opening felt weirdly, and I know that it's not them, but it felt weirdly close to Man with a Mission, especially the Gundam Iron Blood Orphans opening. And at the same time, at the beginning, it felt like back on Chain, but I know this is just me talking, just my opinion, just something that it came to me when I was watching it. Aside of that, the anime is pretty great. I do recommend it. I do recommend the whole of Cinderella Gray because, again, I love Umamusume even though I don't play the game, so there's that. And with that said, thank you guys for listening, thank you guys for watching. Please like, please share, please follow, depending on the platform you're in, and I hope stick around for next time. Bye.